Hello 50,000 beautiful watchers. Holy shit, 50,000. I genuinely didn't expect to get to this point for at least another 6 months, if ever, so yeah, hi. I asked on Facebook what I should do to celebrate, and the most popular answer was a introspective video about my YouTube career so far. The more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea, so yeah, I pitched it to my Patreons. They were very supportive about it, so here we are. I do have a slight fear though that this has the potential to sound incredibly arrogant and pretentious, so right at the start here, I want to make it clear that I really do consider myself incredibly small fry YouTube-wise. I mean, there's talent out there that gets 50,000 subs in an afternoon. I promise you, I'm not about to talk about my incredible journey to success here. I'm just kind of proud of the fact that I do what I love as a full-time job, and I figured it might be fun to discuss the then and now. If you're not interested in that, that is absolutely fine. I will see you in the next video. Okay, to start with, here's some random facts that the newer beautiful watchers might not know. My original plan was to be a general everything reviewer, specializing in video games and just doing the adaptation-themed stuff as one of several side projects. Don't worry, I'm more than happy it turned out this way. The term beautiful watchers is just a variation of something I used to call my friends if I was just a little bit too hyped up on coffee. You know, I'd cream her into the room and be like, "Hello, beautiful people, did you miss me?" Calling myself the Dom was a very spur-of-the-moment decision, something I thought of literally as I was recording the intro to my first video. Obviously, if I'd thought it through, I might have remembered that those words can mean other things, as well as implying that I am the definitive Dominic, as was my original intention. Oh well, let's talk about the past, shall we? My story starts, rather arbitrarily, with me graduating from the University of Derby in 2010 after successfully completing a double degree course in video production and film studies. I regret to say that I followed the standard MO for a proud holder of a Bachelor of Arts in a down economy, i.e. I discovered there was fuck all work available in my chosen field, got a full-time day job, and slowly gave up on all my dreams. I mean, I played around with putting little 2 to 5 minute videos on YouTube, the Don't You Think That's Fucking Weird series, but I neither expected nor received any attention for those because, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, they pretty much just existed to justify me owning about £1,000 worth of editing software and computers. It was a rather generous graduation gift. I almost certainly would have ended up doing that forever if it weren't for the encouragement and financial support of my parents, which got me back into trying to make a career out of film work. I am aware that I'm the epitome of the privileged white boy, but whatever, my parents are awesome and I love them, shut up. Unfortunately, even unpaid work in the film industry turned out to be harder to get a hold of than I expected due to the imbalance in supply and demand. I ended up bouncing around doing things like music videos for friends and wedding videos for family, and the occasional unpaid work experience gig with a low-budget film company. At one point, myself and a friend I'd recently met were helping a local guy put his first documentary together, a project that turned out to be almost entirely pointless and unrewarding, save for one thing. I discovered somewhat randomly that I was reasonably good with working with green screens and colour keying. That gave rise to the rather stupid videos you can still see on my channel called Project Narcissism, or Me, where I superimpose myself into famous scenes from movies. Again, I didn't really expect these to get popular, and they did not. After a while, I just got so tired of it all. I said to myself that if I couldn't figure out a way to make this filmmaking thing work before the end of the year, I was going to give up on it altogether. I didn't figure out a way to make the filmmaking thing work before the end of the year. However, when I got to the end of the year, I just sort of said, fuck it, I was lying to myself before. I would rather keep trying and failing for my entire life than give up on this. I mean, I swear I'm not making this up to sound dramatic, that's just what happened. And I will be forever happy that it did, because it was just after that Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic and one of my personal inspirations, put a little message at the end of his Lorax review saying that Channel Awesome was doing a talent pickup. I guess a lot of people either miss that or have forgotten about it, because I get asked how I got to be involved in that particular website a lot these days. Yeah, that was pretty much it. The talent pickup was the inspiration I needed to get off my lazy arse and film the video game review that I've been thinking about doing for years. It was a rather damning review of Homeworld 2, the space strategy game. I sent it in as an audition video, apparently along with 1,200 other people, and through some spasm of the universe, became one of the few dozen people selected to be a new producer on the site. I'm yet to meet Rob Walker in person, and he'll probably have forgotten by now because he had to shift through so many videos, so I may never know what the hell he saw in that shallow, rambly, poorly recorded and edited review that I sent in to make him think that I had potential, but fucking hell I am grateful that he did, because that was probably the single biggest turning point of my life to date. Not only was this a website that I've been a fan of for years, the Channel Awesome gig turned out to be exactly what I needed to make a real go at being a proper YouTuber, because, I mean, I was kind of a lazy bastard before that, and there is nothing more effective for stopping a channel from becoming popular than a slow or sporadic upload schedule. Because making making at least 2 videos a month is like the only thing Channel Awesome insists on from its producers, it became the discipline I needed to stick to the kind of release schedule that gets a channel more noticed. And on top of that, it obviously provided the initial boost in viewership that I needed, and the confidence that I've been lacking before. That said, it was bloody hard at first. I mean, 2 videos a month probably doesn't sound like much, but when you're working full-time, in shifts, in a 24-hour call center, reading a book, watching a film, researching, writing, filming, and editing a full review in the day and a half you get off a week is kind of exhausting. Anyway, that's the story about how I blindly stumbled my way onto YouTube. Perhaps we should talk about what I worked on once I got there. So yeah, as I mentioned at the start, I initially wanted to just be a reviewer of pretty much everything, with an emphasis on video games, so I started with Homeworld 2. I guess I'm still kind of proud of some of the sketches, as this was the first time I'd attempted that whole acting with oneself thing, but I doubt I'll ever be really happy with this episode. This, unfortunately, became the norm for me for at least the first 2 years or so of doing this. After about a week of an episode going up on YouTube, I inevitably started to obsess over all the flaws in it, and stopped being able to watch it back without sinking into a deep pit of shame. Don't be concerned though, spoiler warning, I eventually got over that sort of thing. Then I did Starship Troopers, the pilot episode for Lost in Adaptation. Okay book, a bit too right-wing for me, but there you are. A stupid but fun film, and a crap adaptation. This is one of the episodes I definitely intend to redo someday, because I really did miss all the best stuff there. For one thing, I completely failed to mention that it was a crap adaptation on purpose for entirely political reasons, but that's a story for another time. All I can really say in my defense is, come on, it was my first go at this, and I really hadn't figured out what I wanted to do with it yet. I was working under the assumption that the main selling point of Lost in Adaptation was going to be finding famous films that were based on books that very few of my audience had read, and just listing the differences, not offering my analysis on the effects of those changes. It was a misconception that would fade eventually thanks to all the positive feedback I got every time I went into a little more detail on certain things. If you've ever wondered if leaving a nice comment on a video makes an actual difference, I can confirm that it does. Then I reviewed Mass Effect 2 Arrival, which was one of those reviews that I just had to make for the sake of my sanity, because until that point, Mass Effect had been my everything, and I just couldn't believe how bad this DLC was in every way. It almost completely ruined Commander Shepard for me in one fell swoop, and if I didn't explain why in some public forum or another, I was going to go mad. So yeah, basically that episode was pretty much just me working through some stuff. It was also, I think, when I first realised that game reviews were not going to be my thing. Not only was I consistently just talking about storylines and completely ignoring gameplay and every other factor in a usual game review, I also didn't have any decent capture software and realised it was a bit of a dick move to keep borrowing other people's Let's Play footage. I was starting to get a little nervous at this point because, while interest in my work got a small bump from Starship Troopers, I was becoming aware that at the rate I was going, I was barely going to top 1,000 subscribers within a year, and I would never have a chance of doing this full time. Then along came The Never-Ending Story. Pretty good book, great film, and the half of it they included was a good adaptation, which turned out to be my first genuinely popular upload. This one is less painful to me than Starship Troopers, though there's still quite a lot I wish I'd done better in regards to it, and I'll be damned if I'll ever rewatch it, but the audience reaction to it was really gratifying, and it just gave me so much more energy to keep making these reviews. I think its reception was a combination of me figuring out what I was doing slightly better, actually taking the time to research a little more beforehand, and my awesome dancing at the start. Then I started doing the Prisoner retrospective, which I swear I will probably get back to someday, I'm just waiting for the right mood to strike me. I'm just struggling with it a little bit because I don't really think I'm doing it justice. It's a show that contains layered metaphors for real-world issues, complex allegories for 1960s Britain, double meanings, and unspoken understandings, and I spend most of my time mocking the silly clothing and complaining about plot holes. We'll see what happens with that in the future, okay? Then, let's see, I think it was Ender's Game after that. Iffy book, crap film, great adaptation. For ages it ended up being my longest review by far, though I have no idea how or why that happened. You might remember I did a separate video along with that one, ranting about what an absolute dickhead Orson Scott Card's being with his constant campaign against the LGBT community, and how his religious bias had slowly seeped into and ruined all of his books. I was expecting more backlash from that, to be honest. I mean, I had some, but most of my audience seemed to feel the same way. I also met some really nice Mormons through that who popped up to disavow Card. You'll notice that I also start standing much closer to the camera in this one. That's because, until this point, I'd been borrowing borrowing my friend's pretty good camera, but he needed it back, so I'd gotten myself one that wasn't capable of nearly the same kind of HD recording, so that was affecting my green screen quality if I stood too far away from it. I think it was just after Watchmen, and just before a series of unfortunate events, that I finally started making enough money doing this to upgrade my equipment, so I got a much better camera that also came with an external microphone port, so you saw a huge jump in quality of the image and the sound between those two episodes. Man of Tai Chi came next, which was very poorly timed, unfortunately. When I started writing it, it was quite acceptable to hate on Keanu Reeves, but just before I finished it, John Wick came out, and everyone loved him again, so no one wanted to hear me say that he was a shit actor in this other film. This ended up being the only film I ever reviewed for like a year and a half before I did the Benchwarmers. After that, Jurassic Park. Good book, amazing film, okay-ish adaptation, which was another really popular upload, thank goodness, and one of the few books I actually ordered a physical copy of instead of just reading on Kindle, because someone gave me the heads up that it was more illustrated than most. I have to confess I reused the Project Narcissism footage of the dinosaur eating me in the intro. Everyone got some sweet, sweet side arse there. Lots of good stuff to talk about in this one, like Grant actually liking children and the baby eating at the start of the book. There's also a shit ton of free CGI dinosaurs online, so doing the sketches was really fun. This is probably one of my personal favourites from the early stuff, although again, I really can't rewatch it because all I see is the stuff I could have done better. It was around this sort of time that I really started to take note of the fact that Lost in Adaptation seemed to be the show that I was having the most fun with, and it was pulling in way more views than anything else I was doing, so I decided, well, hey, it's win-win if I make this my main show from now on. I believe it was also around this time that a beautiful watcher named Amy messaged me to ask if I had a Patreon page set up because she'd be interested in supporting the show if so. Until she brought it up, I guess it just hadn't occurred to me that someone would want to do that, so thanks Amy. Okay, I may need to start skipping ahead here because this is going to take hours otherwise, although on the off chance you are interested in hearing my quick thoughts on all the episodes I've done, let me know in the comments and I'll put something together. Let's see, Percy Jackson, good book, terrible film, atrocious adaptation, was fun to work on this one and was another relatively popular upload. Then tried my hand at a graphic novel by covering Watchmen, great book, good if controversial film, and really good adaptation, yes it was, shut up. I finally worked up the nerve to ask some of the channel awesome old guard for cameos in this one, which is why you see Doug Walker pop up in it. Super nice guy, by the way. I mean, I've not met him in person yet, I'm hoping to this year, but despite the fact that he's a super mad busy guy, when I asked him if he would film something for me, he just immediately said, sure, what do you need and when? I also managed to get Linkara to give the counter-argument to my assessment of the ending. I've actually met Lewis a few times now at conventions in America, and again, just the nicest guy. He has done so much to make all the new people who joined Channel Awesome feel welcome. I possibly got just a little bit starstruck when I was working with him, so I think I made it look a little bit too much like I was conceding to his opinion in the episode, which wasn't what I meant to do. It was supposed to end on a sort of agree to disagree vibe, but oh well. A series of unfortunate events came next. Personally, I thought terrible books, bad film, and shitty adaptation. Look, you're not always going to like my opinion, I'm sorry. This was my first official Patreon-sponsored request, and I had no idea it was going to become one of my most watched videos for so long. I mean, it held a top spot until Harry Potter came along. I really enjoyed making the intro because it had been ages since I'd done any of those movie re-edits that I used to do, and I'd forgotten how much fun they were. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Great book, even better film, but as I revealed, not really an adaptation at all. I'm really glad I did this episode, but fucking hell it was stressful to work on. I went back and rewrote the entire script 3 times from scratch before I had the idea to do the in-name only format, and it was a fucking nightmare tracking down and editing all the footage to recreate the book. Die Hard. Pretty good book, great film, decent adaptation, and one of my personal favourites to work on as an episode. Guest starring my friend Ryan from Battle Geek Plus as suspiciously young-looking Mr. Miyagi. Guessing to reveal that the lead in this was originally a crazy old man was one of my favourite moments of Lost in Adaptation to date. A Christmas Carol, currently the only dumb Oscars out there, but I am planning to do more of them real soon. Ironically, I tried this out because I was a little pushed for time over Christmas and thought it might be easier than a regular episode. Oh boy, was that not true. Skipping ahead quite a ways to Coraline, great book, great film, great adaptation, and another favourite of mine to work on. Just like everything else so far, it's still pretty much unwatchable to me personally, but it has one of the most popular sketches I've ever done in it. I chose to cover the Benchwarmers before starting the Harry Potter-a-thon because I still needed some time to prepare, and I find that doing movie reviews where you can basically just play clips and riff it all the way through much easier than the more analysis-heavy stuff that I was doing for Lost in Adaptation. I did decide though that I wasn't ever going to do something like this again afterwards, at least not in this format, because it's just a little bit too much like what everyone else on YouTube is doing, and if there's anything I've learned since starting this, it's that your own sense of identity is essential. And then the Harry Potter-a-thon itself. In general, amazing books, okay films, but very disappointing disappointing adaptations. This was hands down the most formative of my time on YouTube so far. It was simultaneously the most fun, the most stressful, the most hard work, and the most rewarding few months of my entire career. On top of that, I finally started liking my own work. I can say that if I had a reason to, I'd be perfectly fine with rewatching these. It was also a really big time for my channel as my subscribers more than doubled while I was working my way through this series. In the space of a few months, my 2-year plan for going full-time professional YouTuber got adjusted to a 1-year plan, then readjusted to a 6-month plan, then, well, all of a sudden it became a feasible, immediate option for me. I realized that if I gave up my day job, I'd have time to do at least 3 videos a month and would be making more money than if I kept working there. It was also the introduction of a certain smug douchebag. The inspiration for Terrence had come when I was in Manchester Comic-Con a few months earlier. I was looking through some Harry Potter themed keyrings on a stall and the woman running it happened to mention that she was in Hufflepuff. I jokingly said, "Oh dear, I'm sorry," and received such a perfect mix of anger and amusement from those surrounding me that it got me thinking about the idea of a character that's based on that sort of humour, you know? I got a lot of enthusiasm and support from beautiful watchers, new and old, during the Harry Potter-a-thon, and I can't tell you how much that means to me because, well, I tried not to make a big thing out of this at the time, but it was during a period where I really needed my beautiful watchers. In the months leading up to it, I went through some pretty shitty stuff involving a very painful breakup, and, well, I've always been quite invested in politics, so that whole Brexit referendum thing where my country basically committed seppuku with a dumb grin on its face took a real emotional toll on me. The combination left me in a much darker place than I like to admit now, but having you guys constantly there for me was more help than I can realistically describe, so, you know, thanks for that. Anyways, onto The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Great book, okay film, kind of embarrassing adaptation though. My first full crossover with another YouTuber. I met the lovely Kaluna last year at the same convention where I first met Linkara, and we'd been talking about the books we both loved ever since. The Hobbit was a logical choice for our collab because that girl is a fucking fountain of Tolkien knowledge. It's just a shame she trusted me to write the script, or she might have picked up on those damn moon letters I missed. Oh well, next time. I guess the next really big thing that I did after that was the triple whammy on the 50 Shades of Grey not all that long ago. Massive boost in subscribers after doing those, which I really wasn't expecting, and that's still going on now actually. It wasn't originally intended to be a 3-parter, and it worked out that I had to work my way backwards from the end in a most frustrating way. You see, I started just trying to write the Lost in Adaptation episode, but I found I couldn't because I was just so angry about the book, I realised I was going to need to do a review episode and get my feelings off my chest before I could concentrate. Then, when I was trying to write the review, I realised that because the survey had shown me that no one had actually read this garbage, I was spending so long having to explain the context of everything before I could tear it apart, my review was becoming nonsensically cumbersome, so I was going to have to film a plot synopsis episode before that. In a somewhat unexpected development, very reminiscent of Lost in Adaptation becoming my main series, once again the episode that was really only intended for a supporting role ended up stealing the show. The review of the book has become my first non-LIA episode to top 100,000 views, and is currently climbing towards doubling that. The one downside of this particular video attracting a large fresh audience to my channel is that a lot of the new arrivals got very confused as to why I was called the Dom but confessed to not being particularly into BDSM, and got doubly confused by the fact that I was wearing handcuffs, something you would usually expect from a sub. This is because they didn't see the end of the Godfather episode where I put the handcuffs on, or the plot synopsis video where I broke out of them. I was reminded of a very important YouTube lesson from that because I'd forgotten that every video I make could end up being someone's first introduction to me, so if I'm going to do a story that arches over multiple episodes, I have to remember to mention this is happening every now and again. Which pretty much brings us to the present, I guess. Things really couldn't be better right now. The channel appears to be riding a new subscriber wave at the moment, which is awesome. You may have noticed I didn't do a 40,000 subscriber milestone. Well, that was because I got to 50,000 before I could get around to it. At the recording of this video, I'm currently sitting at about 54,000 and rising, which is fucking amazing. I'm also working towards moving to LA later this year to be closer to my other YouTube friends, so yeah, I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but everything seems to be really coming up Millhouse right now. Though, in all of this, there is just a slight melancholy for me just at the moment. You see, until now, I've been enjoying a really close relationship with my beautiful watchers, in particular with my top tier Patreons, but also the fan base as a whole. You know, if I saw anyone had commented early on several videos consistently, I tried to make sure I responded to them at least once, you know, and I made sure that I replied to every message that I got on Facebook and Twitter, unless it was just a request. I was always getting too many of those to respond to them all. And also, I tried to make a point of at least glancing over every comment I got on every video. Yep, I really did that. I know that sounds like a terrible terrible idea, but it really paid off for me. I mean, the feedback I've gotten through that has really helped improve my work over the years. It means I've always known exactly what kind of direction to take the show in. I mean, the comments are the reason that I switched to a more analysis-based review and just started doing the jokes and sketches when I felt like it, instead of trying to force in as much humour there as possible just for the sake of it, you know, just because I thought that was what YouTubers did. The comments made me realise that I didn't have to keep looking for books that no one had heard of, because people seemed to enjoy hearing my take on things they already knew as much as they enjoyed learning obscure facts. It's also the reason I started doing those little mini-reviews at the start of each episode about the book and the film as individuals, which turned out to be a really good idea because I hadn't realised until then just how much not being able to get those opinions off my chest was affecting my adaptation reviews. But what's happening now, and it's honestly kind of amazing that this started happening almost exactly as I hit 50,000 subscribers, is I'm finding it impossible to maintain that same level of connection with the fans of the show just because of the sheer volume of them. I mean, I'm getting a new comment every few seconds at the moment, and it's spread out amongst my 125 videos, so it's just not feasible to read them all anymore. I've also had to start introducing more and more restrictions on Patreon, and I've just recently had to actually cap off the total number of people who can sign up for the top 2 tiers because there's just been so much enthusiasm for it. I mean, I did the math, and it's going to take me at least a year from now to do all the requests I've been paid to do, which, I mean, I don't mind because almost all of the suggestions have been really great, but I just don't think it's fair to ask people to wait that long for their requests, you know? So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I can no longer sustain the way I was doing things before and the level of personal interactivity that I would like to have with my beautiful watchers. Now, obviously, I'm not courting sympathy here because this is, at the end of the day, just a side effect of the amazing enthusiasm and support I'm currently receiving, and I'm certain whatever new way of doing things that we work out is going to be just as great. It's just that I suspect I'm going to miss the close connection I had with everyone at the start, that's all. Anyway, I think it's about time we talked about the future. Well, like I said before, I'm currently working my way towards a big move to California to be with my peeps, and to this end, I threw myself into the fiery pits of American bureaucracy at their embassy in London and managed to wrestle my US passport off them. Oh yes, I'm American as well as British. I was born in Durham, North Carolina. Go Tar Heels. Once I'm there and settled, I'm planning to become super active going to conventions all across the US and meeting as many beautiful watchers in person as possible. I'm also going to start arranging massive collaborations with me and all the other YouTubers I can rope into it. It's gonna be glorious. Beyond that, I'm just hoping to keep on doing what I'm doing. I mean, I really love Lost in Adaptation, so as long as you guys keep watching it, I'll keep making it. Well, thanks for watching what was almost certainly a very rambly video, my beautiful watchers. I think what I'm gonna do is hold out until the 100,000 subscriber milestone next, assuming I ever do get to that, and then do something really big. Peace out.